You are listening to This is Oklahoma, hosted by Mike Hearn, telling stories of Oklahomans and those that have made it their home.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma podcast. Mike Hearn here, your host, back with another episode. Excited to share this episode with you today. But before we do, I've got to thank our sponsors. First of all, the Oklahoma Hall of Fame. They've been a huge part of this podcast for the last few years. So the Oklahoma Hall of Fame have been sharing Oklahoma's story through its people since 1927. For more information on the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, go to www.oklahomahof.com. And for daily updates, go to oklahomahof on Instagram and give them a follow. Our other sponsor today is Chickasaw Nation. Now, the Chickasaw Nation have sponsored pretty much everything in Oklahoma. They're a huge supporter of Oklahoma, and it's an honor to have their name and their brand supporting this podcast. A huge shout out to Governor Anatoby for supporting this podcast. It really means a lot. Our third sponsor is Diffie Ford Lincoln down in El Reno. Now, this one makes me so happy because these guys are great friends of mine, play a lot of golf together. I've bought my cars from them, do most of my oil changes down there, have a cup of coffee, hang out down in El Reno. It's a good spot to go. And not only are they great friends, but they provide a great service. So for over 60 years, third generation family owned Oklahoma business down in El Reno. They're also in Bethany as well. So people in the Bethany area know the Diffies really well. But if you're looking for anything new, used, Ford, Lincoln, or whatever, I'm sure they could find anything you want. Check them out, diffieford.net, and then on Instagram at diffiefordlincoln. This episode is presented by the Choctaw Nation. The Choctaw people have a rich history and a bright future. At the Choctaw Cultural Center, you can take part in a story 14,000 years in the making. Stroll through our immersive exhibits portraying Choctaw life from the moment our ancestors emerged from the Nani Weha in Mississippian homelands to the Trail of Tears, where we lost so many loved ones, and finally to the modern-day tribe making a positive impact on local communities throughout southeastern Oklahoma. Try your hand at our social dancing and stickball and learn more about our vibrant culture through demonstrations, workshops, and classes. The kids will have a blast in our Luxie Activity Center. The Choctaw Cultural Center is more than a museum. It's a living, breathing experience. Visit choctawculturalcenter.com to plan your visit. This episode is brought to you by Hope is Alive. Hope is Alive exists to radically change the lives of drug addicts, alcoholics, and those who love them. Join us on August 11th at the National Cowboy and Western Heritage Museum for a celebration of hope featuring guest speaker Tim Tebow and musical artist Ben Fuller. Find out more and get your tickets at HIA10.com. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma. Mike Hearn here, host, back with another episode up in Tulsa, Oklahoma today. We're going to talk some storm chasing, which it's kind of present at the moment. Tulsa, sadly, has been rocked by a bad storm, but Oklahoma loves storms and tornadoes, and we love sitting on the back porch and watching them. So, my guest today is Michael Seger, who is morning meteorologist and storm chaser of 2 News in Tulsa. Michael, thanks for inviting me into the station today.
Yeah, thank you for coming up, Mike. I appreciate the invite.
Yeah, looking forward to diving into it. I mean, I've shared a lot of your photos. Love being out there storm chasing, and obviously fairly into weather since it's your career and job, which we'll get into all that as well. And you like I said, when we got here, the news station was out of power for a little time, but fortunately you kind of got away with it unscathed compared to a lot of other Tulsans. But let's dive into you. Tell me a little bit about you. Where'd you grow up?
Grew up in a small town in southern Indiana. The town name is Dubois, like Dubois, French name. But Dubois, Indiana, it's about 500 people. Grew up in that small town and used to watch storms. I had a bedroom window that faced west up on a hill, and just used to watch those storms roll in. So the weather's always been kind of an interest just because of where I grew up, and I have family that are farmers, and so obviously weather's huge when it comes to that. So I guess the interest was always there since I was young, just from growing up in rural southern Indiana.
Yeah, and then growing up and going into school and stuff, do you just you're always fascinated with weather and I'm a golfer, right? And we always think we're the best weathermen in the world because when the rain is coming. Or isn't coming. But, when you're a farmer, like you just said, like that's fairly important. Water is important, and, it could make or break, the crop that year, right?
Yeah, and my grandfather had a rain gauge at the house and also out at the farm just to kind of monitor, how the rain was doing. And he was also a navigator on a B-17 way back in World War II days. And so he had a little bit of knowledge of weather, and he used to tell me stories of navigating around thunderstorms and stuff like that. And so I think a lot of that does get tied back to him, not just with the farming, but with those stories. But like you mentioned, when you grow up, it affects everybody. Weather affects everybody. But I think it is a little bit more impactful when you grow up in a rural area in a farming community.
Yeah, no doubt. So you have that, you have that background, and looking back, you're like, yes, that's 100% why I'm in weather, and I love it. How do we get, to transition and going in high school and university and ended up in Oklahoma?
Well, this is going to be a longer story probably than you anticipated.
Plenty of time.
Yeah.
Please fill as much time as possible. Yeah.
So I debated for a long time if I was going to go weather or art.
Okay.
So it's two completely opposite ends of the brain.
Sure.
But I was always good at art. I've always loved to sketch and draw, and took a lot of art classes through high school. One thing that I was worried about with weather is there's a lot of higher end math. I was good at the lower end stuff, but when you start getting into the calculus and stuff like that, it's a little more challenging for me. So I had a big debate, like, what am I going to do? And I ended up getting a scholarship to art school.
Okay.
In Savannah, Georgia. And I'm from a small town in southern Indiana, and I have an opportunity to take this scholarship. I'm like, I'm doing it, And so I went to art school before I did any meteorology, and went down there for 4 years. I graduated high school in 95. And so by the fall of 95, I'm going to Savannah, Georgia, and graduated in the spring of 99. I got a degree in computer art with a minor in art history. Okay. I really enjoyed it, but there was a part of me that I wasn't sure if this was my passion, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And so I stayed in Savannah for about a year after graduation. One of my roommates and I, we tried to do some freelance work and stuff like that. Did a couple things, but we weren't very successful with it. And I was working at a gym in Savannah, and I was like, I need to figure out something else, So then I moved to Florida. Like, I'm just like, well, what am I going to do? Well, I love kind of like the tourist kind of industry, the hospitality industry. I had taken a job in Hilton Head just for a very short amount of time. I was driving back and forth between Savannah and Hilton Head, but that drive was getting pretty old. And so I took a job as a doorman in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, at a resort on the beach, largest private beach in South Florida Outback. I went down. I kind of jumped the gun there, but I went down for the interview. Had to go back for another interview a week later, and ended up doing that for a little over 2.5 years. Okay. And it was an awesome job. Like, you had so many just different people coming in and out of those doors, and I had the opportunity. I was the first one that people would meet. I'd welcome them to the resort, and just different kinds of celebrities, just all kinds of different people. It was a Marriott resort, and the Bill Marriott would come and stay there. Yeah. I was like, this is the guy. This is the guy,
right, Yeah, your name's on the building. Yeah.
He's got his name everywhere all over the world. Yeah. And, they'd bring the family in to stay between Christmas and New Year's. It was one of his favorite resorts that they had. And it was just, that experience was just incredible. I wish I would have kept a journal. I mean, I would have an amazing bestseller probably if I just would have kept a journal of all those stories. But I think that really helped me to do this, because I was and I still am. People are surprised to hear it, but I still am very introverted. Mm-hmm. And in this line of work, being on television, that can, getting into television can be very intimidating. Mm-hmm. And I think that helped kind of break that shell and maybe gave me a little confidence, like maybe I can do this weather thing that I've been kind of putting off for a long time.
Yeah, I'm sure we could spend an hour talking about Marriott stories. right? Like just, the people that you see and the people that come in and, like it's a very interesting world, right? Down there. And a lot of vacation people and, all the stories from all those amazing things and amazing times. And, you mentioned art and you mentioned kind of that period 95 to 99 and computer art, like that's, like peak internet boom, right?
Yeah, I mean that was the Toy Stories. Was the you had Pixar. They were kind of really getting into their heyday then. That's what I was going to school for. Yeah. And like I said, I enjoyed it. I got a lot of my classmates from them. They are working for a lot of these companies now that are producing these movies. Mm-hmm. But for me, I realized that I didn't know if it was for me. Like once I got into it, I was like, I like it, but I'm not sure if this is really what I want to do.
Yeah. It makes sense then, like, the artist in you as well dives into the photography side of things, as well.
100%.
Like, that all kind of comes around. And do you still, do art, draw, anything like that?
Not as much as I would like. I think that photography has kind of filled that role.
Sure.
And I wish I would have done photography sooner.
Yeah.
Because I've been chasing storms since the mid 2000s, and this photography thing is something I just started picking up. Gosh, when did I buy the camera? Right before the pandemic, probably a year or two before the pandemic, when I first started attempting.
So recently.
Just recently with the photography, but I've had many years of storm chasing before that.
Yeah.
And I've got to know a lot of photographers that mm-hmm. do what I do, and they've been a big inspiration for me. And it just clicked. I was like, why am I not doing this? Like, it's these photographs they are amazing. They're beautiful. And like, this is what I need to do.
Yeah, 100%. So from that time, then you're in Florida 2.5 years. Why does that come to an end if you're having so much fun down there? And, was there just like not a logical next career step in that, or did you just wanted to go somewhere else?
Yeah, basically I had, I realized, when it's getting to be 2003, I'm now at my age, getting into my mid-20s. Mm-hmm. And as much as it was a cool job and I was, made good money with tips and everything, I realized this may be not what I want to do for a career. Mm-hmm. It was great right now, but I still had that weather itch. I found myself just, anything weather related, being in Florida, the tropical systems that would come up, I would just watch that like a hawk. And I've always been fascinated with storms and tornadoes and, going back to childhood. I used to have my parents order the videos. In fact, I brought a few of them here.
Oh, wow.
Just a old school VHS here. Yeah. Storm Chaser worn fatally. This was the Weather Channel used to produce a lot of these videos. And what's the year on this one? Does it say it back here? Okay, this one's 96, so that one's actually a little bit later.
Yeah, I haven't seen a video VHS in a long time.
Yeah, so so that's, my fascination goes all the way back there, and it just started hitting me like, you only live once. Mm-hmm. If you're going to do this, now's the time to do it. So I started looking at going back to school to do, and I knew I wanted to do broadcasting. If I did this, I wanted to go into broadcasting. I was in South Florida, in Fort Lauderdale, and University of Miami's right there. They have a program. So I checked out the University of Miami, visited the campus, and got accepted, but I didn't realize, this is just how naive I was. I didn't know it was a private school and how expensive that school is, and I didn't want to be six figures in debt, finishing up trying to pay off all those student loans. So I ended up turning that down. Talked to my now sister-in-law. She was a basketball player at Valparaiso University, which is Northwest Indiana, just outside of Chicago. They kind of had a up-and-coming program, and it's just blossomed since. But she told me to check it out. And so I got online and I started looking at it. They have a great relationship with WGN-TV in Chicago and Tom Skilling, who, if you're from the Midwest in Chicago, he's like the king of weather in Chicago. And they also had a storm chase team. And they have they would go out for a little over a week, about a week and a half or so, and chase storms in the plains. And I'm reading this online. I'm like, this looks awesome. And so I made the plans. Like, I've got to check it out. And so made the appointment. Flew up to Indianapolis, and then actually my brother was at school at Purdue at the time. I actually stayed at his place, and then the next day drove into Valparaiso to check it out. And then after my visit there, I knew, like, as I was heading back, if I got accepted, I was going to go.
Yeah.
And
well,
there you go.
And then, I mean, coming back home, if home state, right?
Yeah, opposite ends of the state where I grew up, but yeah, definitely closer to home. I will say, though, moving back north to the cold, I was like, what am I doing?
Yeah. Why am I doing this?
I'm going to miss the palm trees and the beach.
Am I regretting my decision immediately, right? You get that winter and you're like, this is miserable.
But worth it.
Yeah, no doubt. And also, like I said, you only live once, and choosing to go back to school after, being mid to late 20s, right? Like, that's quite a decision to go to do that. And yeah, to leave sunny Florida and such a great time, but to have that realization of, you know what, like, I don't want to be 35, 40 and think, I could have been a weatherman, right?
Yeah,
I could have been a meteorologist.
Exactly.
I could have
100%.
chased storms and stuff. So, I mean, how was that time? And also, you're going to school, as an older, an older man, I guess, an older adult. You're not 18, so like, you have more awareness. And I guess a lot of people who I know that have gone back to school, they have more time to just dedicate to school, right? They're not like going to parties and running around and going to movies and whatever it is, right?
Yeah, I think you're exactly right on that. I had, I want to say it was like a mission, but I felt like I was there for a purpose, and I was very focused on what I needed to do to follow this path. It was a little weird as I'm taking some of these classes. I look back at it now, not so much of a big deal, but at the time when you are in your mid 20s and you're now going to class with kids that were just in high school a year ago, it's like, this is kind of weird,
I'm that guy.
I'm the old guy in school,
No doubt. So how was it? How was school?
It was fantastic. The program they've got there at Valpo, and they had at the time they had a specific broadcast meteorology program, which is what I went for. Yeah. They don't have that anymore, but I was one of the last to go through that process. But they're a smaller program, and so I think I needed that. Yeah. Again, it may not seem like it, but I am introverted in nature, so having that smaller group that that more one-on-one learning, I think was very helpful for me. Yeah. And once I got there, I realized, like, I was with people just like me that are just fascinated with weather, can talk about weather, and never get tired of it. And it was such a great experience. I absolutely loved it. I owe so much to Valpo, and the way it worked out, because of my transfer credits from going to Savannah College of Art and Design, I was able to wrap up the broadcast MET degree in like 2 years in a summer session, basically. So I didn't have to do a full 4 years, and that was another big plus. Yeah,
that's a huge plus, right? Yeah, especially on the monetary side of things as well, too, right? Yeah,
exactly.
Huge plus having 2.5 years in school. What's the one of like the biggest misconceptions of people who go to meteorology school? Like, you mentioned like the math and stuff. Like, it's not just like looking at storms. I mean, you guys, it's such a huge task and such an important thing that you guys do, right? With like tracking and figuring out where they go. I mean, it is, it's, people joke that like the weathermen have the easiest job in the world because, it changes every day, so it's the easiest thing to predict, and no one really cares, and no one gets mad at you if you get it wrong, because people get it wrong all the time. Clearly, there's a lot more in it than that. So, what are some of the things that just like, the hard things or the misconceptions that stand out for you at that time?
I think as far as like kind of learning through the years there, I never understood. I've always was fascinated with weather. And then once I got into school, just the physics of the atmosphere, how the atmosphere is a fluid. You don't see it because it's clear, but just of how the motions are through the atmosphere, and learning that aspect, and it just kind of clicked. Like, I don't know why it clicked with me, but it made sense. So like when I go out and chase and I see a supercell thunderstorm building up, and you can see that the rotation of the updraft, and you can visualize how the wind field from the ground level up to the top of the atmosphere is affecting that, and why the storm's doing that. Everything just started clicking and making sense. I was like, that's why that does that. And I don't know if there's any misconceptions. I kind of just went in with an open mind. I didn't have any preconceived ideas like it's going to be this or that. But I will say, as I went through it, everything just seemed to click and make sense. And that doesn't mean we know everything. We don't. There's still, why does Storm A produce a tornado and Storm B doesn't? There's still a lot that is unknown, which is what makes the science of meteorology so fascinating. But what we do know, and what I was able to learn, it just clicked.
Yeah. So do you remember, had you chased before you'd gone to school?
No.
Okay, so what was that first chase like? You're in school with all these people who love what the same thing,
yes.
and they're probably just chomping at the bit to be like, we've got to go chase something all together.
So the way the storm chase thing, it was actually a class. It was designated as a class. So you'd have a professor go out with you, and you'd have a group of students, and we would have a briefing every morning at the hotel, or depending on where we were staying, looking at the data, and a student would run the briefing, a different student each morning. And so you got to try to forecast where you wanted, or where you needed to be or wanted to be for storms, and then to go out and observe them. I mean, it was just, unfortunately, the week that I was out with the school, we didn't have a whole lot of, we had a lot of days what you call, were capped. We had this warm layer aloft, and storms just never got going. But the first time, we were right on the Montana, North Dakota, and South Dakota line, far northwest South Dakota, a little town called Ludlow. And it was the first time that I can recall watching a cumulus cloud develop into a supercell. And then seeing the structure of that storm, and I was just, it was amazing. It was amazing. And you think about, I go back to the times I was a kid, watching these old school VHS videos, and now I'm actually out there doing it. And that was just, it's so awesome. Yeah. So awesome.
For people like that, obviously in Oklahoma, we know weather, right? We know storms. We're not kind of, we're used to all that stuff, but probably a lot of people don't understand how it's created, how it starts. So instead, dumb it down, because you're talking to me here, and I'm sure there's people like me listening that want, but what is the main things that cause the storm, right? And you mentioned kind of cap there, is it so how does it all happen? Why do we get storms?
So why do we get storms? There's basically 4 things you need for severe weather. What we call, one, you need instability. And usually with that, you have cooler air aloft. And so the warm air near the ground, as it rises, it can keep going. Think of a hot air balloon. That's the best way to kind of visualize it. Why does a hot air balloon rise? Because the air inside that balloon is warmer than the air around it. And that is the exact same reason why a thunderstorm rises. So as that air within that thunderstorm is rising through the atmosphere, it's warmer, the storm is, than the air around it. So it's just going to keep going up. And so, but you need something to start that process. So you need some sort of lifting mechanism, whether that be a front, and especially out in western Oklahoma, a dry line, something that can kind of give that air at the surface a little nudge just to get the process started. And then the other thing is moisture. If you don't have a lot of moisture, the storm base will be much higher, which you can still get storms with high bases. But the more moisture you have, it's just basically more fuel for the storms. And then the key to get rotation is the wind shear. And you have 2 different types of wind shear. You got directional shear and speed shear. So, we're sitting here at ground level, let's say today we're going to have a south to southwest wind.
Okay.
But as you go up with height, that wind direction may change. And typically for us in a severe weather event, especially here in Oklahoma, that wind will turn more westerly, southwesterly, and in some cases even northwesterly. So you get this turning of the wind from the ground up.
Yeah.
And so what happens is as these updrafts, as we call it, with these thunderstorms, they get influenced by that turning wind, and they can start feeling that and start rotating.
Sure.
And that's what helps these supercells get going. They start rotating. And that's one of the things that, we're talking about. When you go out and storm chase, you can actually watch that process happen.
Incredible.
And it's just like, oh my gosh, it just clicks. Like, that's why that's doing that. You can literally watch the atmosphere influence those storms. It's amazing.
Yeah, I'm sure. And obviously there are so many days where you're just driving around, right? You're just kind of it's endlessly pounding miles. And like, this is just those boring
It's not always fun and games.
Yeah. But when you find that one storm and you get to see that, right? And you get beautiful pictures from it, and you're aware of where we need to be to capture all this stuff and also stay out of the path. And it must be one of the greatest experiences in the world.
It really is. I mean, I don't like seeing the damage.
Sure.
That's the big. It's a weird emotional thing. But like you said, when you're out there and you get to witness Mother Nature do this, and if you think about it, like this process, where we live, Tornado Alley. This has been doing this for thousands of years. Yeah. Thousands and thousands of years. These storms have roamed across the area long before we were here, and we just have an opportunity to go out and witness this in our short little span that we've got here on Earth. To be able to go out and witness these amazing things. And I kind of got off on a tangent there. What was your question again?
You answered it. Like, it's just kind of like that first storm chase, right? And also like the how it happens, and just the science behind it, right? It's not just someone flicking on a switch and now we have a vacuum cleaner going across Oklahoma, right? That's wrapped in rain and tearing up houses. But yeah, I mean, there's just. It's incredible power, right? And I think the biggest one recently was probably the Matador one in Texas. Was that a few weeks ago?
Yes.
Kind of, other than the Tulsa one, obviously, but that was kind of like the big fatal one. I think I saw some kind of chasers from Oklahoma were out, covering that. I was like, that is, one picture was like, here used to be a Dollar General, and it's like flat. You're like, oh no, it's terrible.
And that's the bad thing. That's the downside of it. When they do go through communities, the best case scenario is you get to watch this out in the open, and it's weird how that is, because I do find it so beautiful. That's why I love to photograph it.
Because the photographs are beautiful.
I mean,
right?
it's amazing. It's like you get to, I kind of mentioned that before. It's like you get to watch Mother Nature, and I don't know if it, to me, it's also just kind of a release. It's like, I kind of forget about life for a moment, and I get to go out there and just, have my time with nature.
Yeah. So get back to the story then. How do you get from university to Oklahoma?
Oh, okay. Yeah. So luck of the draw. When you graduate, to go into broadcasting, you don't know where you're going to go up, and that's like with any job, but there's obviously less positions available to do this. And I was applying to stations from, upstate New York to Oregon. You just want to go to a small market to get a little bit of experience, and then you try to move your way up. The only station to call me back was in Denison, Texas, K10. And so that was the only callback I got out of. I sent out a lot of, what you call resume tapes, and they were on VHS back in that day still. We were getting ready to make that transition, but I still use VHS then. And you just hope a news director sees your tape and like, oh, I like this guy, and it's kind of the luck of the draw where you end up, and that's what brought me to this part of the country. So I was there again about another 2.5 year stint at K10 in Denison. We covered southern Oklahoma, basically up to Ada, Ardmore, and Durant, and then the far northern counties there, right along the Red River in Texas. And an opportunity came up then in Tulsa a little over 2.5 years later, and so I've been in Tulsa now since spring of 2008.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I've over 15 years now in Tulsa, which is crazy.
Yeah,
crazy.
It's crazy, right? I've been here. It's coming on 12 now for me, and I'm just like, where did that time go?
It's
right,
just,
but you don't see yourself anywhere else.
Yeah, I mean,
anyway.
it's been. When I first came to Tulsa, I didn't know how long I was going to be here, but it's really worked out for me. And the job I have here at 2 News Oklahoma, I have not just the morning meteorologist job, but I am a storm chaser for the station as well. So it works out that I get to go out and chase storms for the station, try to report back what I'm seeing. Now, if I'm chasing for work, my photography gets a little bit of a back seat. You don't really have a lot of time to go out and snap a lot of pictures. I may try to take a few here and there, but I'm still out there, and I love being out in the field.
Yeah, you're ticking all the boxes, right? And it sounds like, obviously you get storms, in most parts of the country, but is Oklahoma kind of like the big leagues for storms? Like, is it like the majors, right, for storm chasing?
I would say it's right up there with I mean, if every place has their spots, in the early spring, late winter, the South, as you get over toward Alabama and those areas, they tend to be very active. We tend to get it a little bit later. But anywhere in the plains, it's just, it's just anywhere it is. It's kind of like the big leagues, I guess you could say. Right. Just everybody gets storms, but the frequency is going to be higher.
Yeah, and especially this year, we've had late storms this year, right?
Yeah,
usually they're April, May, done.
Yeah.
It's we've got through June and we've had quite a lot in June.
Yeah, it's been active. The jet stream's been a little bit farther south this year. Sometimes we do call June MCS season. You might be wondering what MCS is. It's a mesoscale convective systems. That's the technical term for these big complex storms. But what came through Tulsa was a derecho, but it was also an MCS. And so what happens is you start to see this high pressure that builds over the southern states in the summer. The jet stream kind of rolls around that, and you'll get these complexes of storms kind of run around the upper part of that high pressure. And so we've been kind of lined up where those storms have been running right over us, and then for a couple of days now, it's pushing a little bit farther north, and we're going to just be hot here the next couple of days.
Yeah, I know. So what's funny is I was down in Norman last week, a couple of weeks ago, and for the golf tournament that was down there, and you got all these people coming in for the Corn Ferry Tour event in Jimmy Austin, all these people coming in from all over the world, and guys who've all over the states, and there's storms coming in, right? And they bring an on-site meteorologist to every PGA and Corn Ferry Tour event, right? So this guy's here, and I said to him on Sunday, I said, all right, what's the weather going to be like? He's like, it's just going to be hot. We should be fine. And Tuesday rolls around. Tuesday was okay. And then Wednesday was the big storm, but we called the corner of Wednesday storm for the pro-am. And it was just windy. And in the space of 15 minutes, all morning it was steady, 15, 20 out the south. And in the space of 15 minutes, it was now 40, 50 gusting out the north, right? So you got guys who have teed off, teeing off this hole that plays south, that have been hitting into wind all day. And then the guys who go off in the afternoon have got this huge downwind, right? So they're sending it. And all these guys walking to the tee box, it's getting dark, the temperature drops from 90 to 70, and they're like, are we going to be okay? And they're like, yeah. When the wind stops and things get quiet, that's when there's a storm coming. Oklahoma's every pro that walked to the tee box was like, welcome to Oklahoma. It's just such a funny thing to do. But yeah, it was a really good event, and it was fun to see that. But we had 3 storms, 3 thunderstorms in the space of a week. They actually postponed play on Friday for 4 hours because of this huge lightning storm that came through. And the media guys are out there putting their drones up and getting great shots, but it got super dark for an hour, right? And then they got to see that, and it's for us, we're used to it, right? It's coming, it'll be blowing through, it won't take too long, get some rain, but it's fun to see other people react to it.
Yeah, and I know a few people that, I don't know if you've seen these storm tours.
I was good. Yeah, I was going to ask you about storm tourism.
Yes, it is a thing.
Yeah,
and I know a few people that run a few of these tours.
Is it fairly lucrative?
I don't know how.
It's such a short
span.
Yeah,
it's such a short span. I don't know really how much they bring in, but
so many variables.
to get on one of those tours is not cheap.
Yeah.
It's thousands of dollars to sign up for one of those tours. But a lot of the people that come in on these tours come internationally.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And so, the people that I know that do this, they say that's one of the things they love about it is they're getting to share their passion with people that are passionate about it, but maybe this is the first time they've had a chance to witness this kind of weather. And you do get, I'm going to say Europe because a lot of the tourists do come over from Europe. You get severe weather in Europe. I always call Italy the tornado alley of Europe. It's a highly active area for big hail and tornadoes as well. But the frequency where you can chase day after day, you don't get that. And you do get just some monsters out here on the plains, just these monster storms. And that's part of it, and you mentioned, we see it all the time, but having somebody see that for the first time and get to see their eyes and their excitement, like, wow, like, yeah. Nature's awesome.
Are they so when you do go out and storm chase, right, and you have these quotes tourism storm chases out there, like, are they just in buses or are they in
it's going to be a different depending on what tour company you use. There's some that one of the guys I know, a good friend of mine, he keeps it very small. Two or three people at a time. But then you do have these others that have a couple, 2 or 3 vans, and they're each van is full of people, so you're going to get variability on that.
Yeah. Because that's one of the things I hear of, people, and a friend of mine did a documentary video probably a couple of years ago now, and followed Val Casser around for basically the whole storm season, and made a documentary about it. And he said the scariest thing about it is the people who are just chasing for fun. They have no idea what they're doing. They're just getting in the way, which is extremely dangerous, but also not dangerous because they're putting themselves in danger, but they're also putting the actual storm chasers in danger too by driving erratically and just being idiots.
Yeah, I think one of the things that has impacted storm chasing is now it's not saying that storm chasing is easy, it's still challenging, but it's a lot easier than what it was, 10, 15 years ago. Is
that because of just apps and technology?
Yes. Okay. 100%. You've got an app on your phone.
Yeah.
And you've got the radar right there. You can see where everything's at. Technology, the data as far as models are concerned, it's getting much more high res. And it is easier for somebody that maybe not have the knowledge and experience to go out and storm chase. And so you are seeing more and more people out there. Like I never want to because it's something I'm passionate about, and I feel like if anybody out there wants to do it, they have every right to go out and storm chase. Because I get to do it. Why can't anybody do it? But just make sure you get the experience and know what you're doing, because you can get in some serious trouble. If we're talking about how amazing it is at times and how beautiful some of these storms are, but they can be very dangerous as well.
Yeah. Well, and one of the point my friend made was there were some hairy moments there because you drive, and it wasn't because of traffic or anything. It was just because they don't know the roads they're driving down, and you get stuck down a dirt road.
Yes.
And he's driving a massive pickup, right? But at the same time, if you're just in a passenger SUV or a van or just your normal car, and you're like, oh yeah, I'll just looking at the map, I'll just take this road. And then it turns into a gravel road that you've never been down before, and you get stuck, and a tornado comes through. You're in trouble. So the other thing that kind of someone mentioned while we were in the golf tournament a couple of weeks ago, one of the local guys was they were chatting to the media guys in the media center, and they said they came up with this quote, and it was meteorologists in Oklahoma are more famous than the actual news anchors, which is pretty spot on, right? That's fairly true, Yeah. And the storm, especially the storm chasers too,
Yeah, I would agree, with Gary England, back in the day with what he started way back in the 80s. It was revolutionary, and that's what everybody is trying to emulate now. And it does make, I think it goes several ways. I think one thing, if you do have a tornado live on the air and people can see it, I think they're more have to take it seriously,
Yeah.
the threat seriously.
Right.
At the same time, if you turn on a TV and you're watching a tornado live on the air, you're probably going to still watch it. It's like, wow, you know. So even if you're not in the danger, it's fascinating to watch as well.
Yeah. The other, so you mentioned, earlier you mentioned just recently, I guess in the last few years, got into photography. Tell me about the process of taking photos for storms and stuff like that, because some of the stuff that you see, and also like I've been resharing to my Instagram a lot of really cool videos too, like of just hyperlapses, time lapses, all that kind of stuff, like so people can actually see the rotation. Because if you stand in there, it's going to take you a while, right? But if you time lapse it and you speed it up,
you can really see it.
Oh, that's what that thing is doing, right?
Yeah.
So how is that process? How has that evolved? Obviously, it's a new hobby, so you're still learning, and photography is something that we will always continue to learn because technology is changing, it's ever changing, and there's always new settings and stuff. But what's that process been like for you out there taking photos?
It's been definitely a learning process, because I went in knowing nothing about photography, trying to learn what settings are best in certain lighting. And when you are out chasing storms, the lighting changes constantly. It just constantly changes. And so learning that process, for a long time, a lot of my early lightning photos were overexposed. And so I've had to really like cut back on the exposure because, especially at night, it's all dark. And so you're thinking, I need to let all this light in. And then you get a lightning flash and it's just like, it's just all blown up white. You can't see any detail. It's just, well, that didn't turn out very good. I'm like, so just learning things like that, maybe trying to put those settings where it's maybe a little underexposed. So then when the lightning flashes, it looks halfway decent, just learning things like that. I have a lightning trigger for daytime lightning. And so I'll try to set this, for a long time I was missing a lot of those lightning shots because I had my frame rate was too fast. And so I had to, slow down that, try to get as long of an exposure as possible for the amount of light in the daytime. And so, you're bringing the ISO down as low as you can and just trying to let less light into the camera and just trying to get as long of an exposure. And it still may be, a quarter of a second or something like that, but just that extra little time increases your odds of catching that daytime lightning strike. Yeah. So it's just learning that process.
Yeah. Do you print a lot of yours? You sell your prints?
I haven't sold a lot, but I haven't put a lot of effort into it. Sure. I do have a website.
Yeah. If anybody, Instagram's great, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Great follow.
I've got to, check out my Instagram if you want. It's Seger Weather, SEGERWX. But I do have a website as well. I don't know why I don't use my name. I have Frontier Sky Photography, all together, .com. I do have some stuff on there, but I would actually like to try to, I set that up 2 or 3 years ago and it's kind of outsourced from another printing company where that comes from. I would prefer, to maybe even set something up locally if possible. But I do print a few, friends and family and stuff like that. I've had a couple people buy some as well, which is always nice, but I'm not making a lot of money off of it at all.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, if it can help fund some camera equipment, we're good to go.
It's just that it basically covers the website and some stuff. That's but if I wouldn't mind if it grew either.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And it's you look at like the big weather photographers, right? The ones that are doing National Geographic stuff, and they're traveling all around the world, and you're just like, this is crazy. I mean, it's amazing the stuff that they're doing, and then you get to kind of marry your love and your understanding of weather as well with photography. So a lot of these photographers probably were just photographers to start with, and then went into maybe understanding weather, whereas you're coming in the other end.
Exactly. So, and I'm fortunate. It is the chasing community is small enough that I've gotten to know a lot of the well-known photographers out there. Great. I mean, they're inspiration for me. It's part of the reason why I kind of opened my eyes, basically, to follow maybe this artistic path and weather, kind of tying my two passions together. And some of the work they do, it's incredible. And I know how hard it is to get those kind of shots, and you spend, just an example, like I did my chasecation a couple weeks ago. You don't know where you're going to stay every night. A lot of times you're booking a last minute hotel at like 7 or 8 while you're still got a chase going. And there's no, it's not a relaxing vacation at all. Yeah. You're putting miles on your vehicle, going from chase target to chase target. You're constantly looking at data, and you do all of that, and at the end of the day, sometimes you miss it. One of the ones that I missed, we were talking about the Perryton tornado, and then there was a couple tornadoes right there on the Oklahoma and Texas line. They're out in western Oklahoma, Texas Panhandle. That day, I basically got suckered on those first storms that went up to the west of Lawton, and the next day I knew I was going to be chasing Colorado. And I'm thinking, why did I go to southwest Oklahoma? Yeah. And these pushed me all the way into North Texas, and I really didn't get a whole lot out of it. And now I got to end up in Colorado the next day. If I just would have been more patient, I could have chased the storms in the Texas Panhandle, much more photogenic, could have got amazing photographs and a shorter drive. And so it's just, it can be, it's weird how it is, but it can be almost depressing. Yeah. It's like, and you've got that long drive ahead for the next day, and you're just like, oh my gosh, I was like, what, why? Like, logistically, it was a dumb decision. And, that's storm chasing for you. That's just how it works.
Do you schedule a chasecation every year?
Yes.
Okay.
So
with
usually
like a bunch of buddies as well?
I usually go out on my own, but you see everybody out there. Yeah. So I bumped into a lot of friends that I know that do this as well. And so I kind of go on my own, but through the process, you get to see a lot of the people So I usually will pick a week in June. Normally, like we were talking about, it's not as active here. So most of the time I'm going to be central northern plains, maybe as far north as the Dakotas, Wyoming, Colorado, Nebraska. I made it to Minnesota one year, in southern Minnesota, chasing. So
you
usually
get that far away and think, I've got so far to go home.
Oh my gosh,
I'm so far from home right now.
it's just crazy.
Just sell the car and fly home. Yeah.
And the amount of miles you put on, it's just, I don't know. Like I think I may have a screw loose or something. What am I doing? Right. But no, you just don't know where you're going to end up. But at the same time, I usually pick June because our season tends to be slowing down. I don't have to worry too much, locally, normally. And I like chasing other parts of the country. And that's one of the things that's nice too, is you get to see other parts of the country that you wouldn't see otherwise. You're driving through these small towns and just seeing other parts of the world. And then I also do one in the desert Southwest for their monsoon season. I just started doing this a couple years ago. First year I struggled a little bit, but last year I had a really good year. So the monsoon season in the desert, basically you get the wind shift brings some moisture up into the desert Southwest, and you get a lot of these storms that'll pop up in the daytime, and they're typically high base because being in the desert, it's hot and dry. We were talking about that earlier. The drier the air, the higher the base of the storm. Yeah. But what that does is you get very visible lightning, long bolts that are not covered up by clouds and rain, and amazing for photography in a desert setting.
Sure. Is that when you kind of like you pan back, you have the wide shot, and it's just like there's just desert, sunshine, storm. Desert, it's amazing when you see that.
It's incredible, and I've just started. Last year I had a good year. I've got mine scheduled for this year as well. It'll be right at the end of July, first part of August is when I'll head out, and hopefully the weather cooperates. But it's totally a different type of storm chasing. In the plains, we're dealing with more organized storms, supercells, storms that can last hours at a time. Yeah. Or in the monsoon season, these can be more air mass type thunderstorms that just pop up to daytime heating. They typically are not as organized, and they are shorter lasting. So what I was getting burned by, especially the first year, is when a storm would go up, by the time I got to it and set up my camera,
It was gone.
it was dying. And so and then you're like, oh, now I've got to go another 50 miles to try to find another storm. It's just, it was a struggle. And I spent 3 days. I want to get a dream shot of a lightning bolt going into the Grand Canyon.
Okay.
It is a goal of mine, and that first year I was out in the Grand Canyon for 3 days, and I never got it.
Yeah.
I did get an amazing close range shot of a downward streamer that was basically right in front of me. Thank gosh I was in a building at the time, but that is a dream shot of mine.
Yeah.
And I did not try that last year. I spent most of my time Tucson, kind of southeast Arizona.
Sure.
I was right on the Mexican border one day, like literally like on a rock road, and 500 yards away there's the border wall.
What? Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing that makes me think of, reminds me of storms, that makes me think, is just the sound, right? Like,
yes,
the crack of a bolt of lightning and the rumble of thunder, and like, it's, sometimes it's nerve-wracking, right? It makes you jump, it's scary, but at the same time, like, it's just, the proof of power and sheer force of the storm and lightning it's pretty impressive.
It really is. And lightning, is 5 times hotter than the surface of the sun. It's just, and it's the same thing. And I don't know how many people, maybe a lot of people know, but it's the exact same thing as like you touching a metal object and getting shocked.
Okay.
It's a static buildup, but at a much bigger scale. But it's the exact same thing. You get all that friction that builds up within a very turbulent thunderstorm, and you start getting these charges that build up within the cloud and the ground, and bang. Yeah. So cool. And what's amazing too is, and I'm going to, sorry, I might keep going off here, but I'm so passionate about it. When you have a thunderstorm that is just producing lightning, like, just constant lightning, it's recharging. It's think about how quickly that charge is building back to produce another bolt in that short amount of time. Yeah. Because once you get the lightning, that evens the charge, and then it's quickly imbalanced again, and you get another one. It's just remarkable.
The other, like, Wales really doesn't get that much weather. We get a lot of rain, right? We get rain, but we don't get, like, because the cloud base is super low, it's super gray and dark all the time. We don't really get big lightning storms. So when I came out here and I was like, my dad, one of the first times my parents came out with like a lightning storm, it was for my graduation, May, obviously peak time. And he's driving. I think they flew into Dallas and drove up to Oklahoma City, and got caught in one of the storms. But that whole week, like, we had pretty good storms, and he's just fascinated and out on the back porch videoing the storms, right? 'Cause he's never seen lightning like that. And I'd been out here 4 or 5 years at that point. I was kind of like, this is normal to me now. Yeah. But it was cool to see his reaction, because it reminded me, like, we don't get storms in Wales, and out here the lightning's just, it's fascinating.
It's phenomenal. Yeah, it really is. And because of the energy that the storms have available in this part of the world, the amount of lightning that they can produce is just it's incredible. Lightning, Florida's technically the lightning capital of the U.S. just because they have so many days with thunderstorms with where they are and the sea breeze interactions and stuff like that. But I would argue some of the storms can be much more electrical here in the plains than what you would even get in Florida. Yeah. It's incredible.
It's so awesome. I mean, it's scary, but it's awesome at the same time. So what's next? What do you have coming up? Obviously it's hopefully storm season's winding down. What's next for you this year?
Basically, we're getting into summer here. We'll see what the weather has to offer for Oklahoma this summer. Will we be in a pattern where we just get hot and dry for a long stretch, or will we still have opportunities for storms? I like this. Even this weekend, we have a chance for some storms over the weekend. I'm already thinking like, I might shoot some lightning. It probably won't be getting supercells and tornadoes, but I'll have an opportunity to maybe go shoot some lightning. And so I'm always, anytime there's a chance, I like to go out. And for me, with the way my schedule works, I'm mornings Monday through Friday.
Okay.
Usually start very early in the morning, do the morning show. So it's a little tougher for me during the week to get out, but I always target Fridays and Saturdays. If there's a chance, I'll go out. But I've got the monsoon chase coming up at the end of July, early August. So looking forward to that. Hopefully we have a good stretch. And then, I'm looking forward to relaxing this summer.
I'm sure you are.
I do like the heat. I know a lot of people don't. I don't mind it. Yeah. Today, the day we're recording this, it's going to be a very hot day in Oklahoma. And I'm like, well, that's just, don't mind it.
I'm playing golf this afternoon. And
you may mind it.
I'm debating, I brought my push cart. I'm debating riding a golf cart or walking. I know. And I'm just like, I enjoy walking, right? But part of me is like, don't be a dumb idiot. Get in a golf cart. I got all my hydration packs and water and all the rest of it. But yeah, we'll see what happens. I'll survive. It'll be fine. I got a big sun hat, plenty of sunscreen. So that's probably going to be a long day. But Michael, thank you so much for inviting me to the station. It's been an absolute blast. Thanks for sharing some great stories, and I look forward to sharing more of your Instagram photos as you continue to go out and chase and see the monsoon season. I'm excited to see what you do there. And for people listening, I'll post Michael's Instagram so you can go follow that. And buy a print if you like one. There's got to be plenty on there, especially the Oklahoma storms. So, to people listening, we'll catch you next episode. Cheers.
Hope you guys enjoyed that great episode. Thank you so much for listening. As always, huge shout out to our sponsors, the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, sharing Oklahoma story through its people since 1927. For more information on the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, go to www.oklahomahof.com and follow them on Instagram for daily updates at OklahomaHOF. Our other sponsor, the Chickasaw Nation, amazing sponsor. They do amazing things for the state, and they're always sponsoring something in Oklahoma. They're a huge supporter of Oklahoma, and without their support, we wouldn't be able to do what we do.
And our third sponsor is Diffie Ford Lincoln down in El Reno. Now, this one makes me so happy because these guys are great friends of mine, play a lot of golf together. I've bought my cars from them, do most of my oil changes down there, have a cup of coffee, hang out down in El Reno. It's a good spot to go. And not only are they great friends, but they provide a great service. So for over 60 years, third generation family owned Oklahoma business down in El Reno. They're also in Bethany as well. So people in the Bethany area know the Diffies really well. But if you're looking for anything new, used, Ford, Lincoln, or whatever, I'm sure they could find anything you want. Check them out, diffieford.net, and then on Instagram at diffiefordlincoln. This episode is presented by the Choctaw Nation. The Choctaw people have a rich history and a bright future. At the Choctaw Cultural Center, you can take part in a story 14,000 years in the making. Stroll through our immersive exhibits portraying Choctaw life from the moment our ancestors emerged from the Nani Weha in Mississippian homelands to the Trail of Tears, where we lost so many loved ones, and finally to the modern-day tribe making a positive impact on local communities throughout southeastern Oklahoma. Try your hand at our social dancing and stickball and learn more about our vibrant culture through demonstrations, workshops, and classes. The kids will have a blast in our Luxie Activity Center. The Choctaw Cultural Center is more than a museum. It's a living, breathing experience. Visit choctawculturalcenter.com to plan your visit. This episode is brought to you by Hope is Alive. Hope is Alive exists to radically change the lives of drug addicts, alcoholics, and those who love them. Join us on August 11th at the National Cowboy and Western Heritage Museum for a celebration of hope featuring guest speaker Tim Tebow and musical artist Ben Fuller. Find out more and get your tickets at HIA10.com.
Thank you for listening. We are inspired by those around us and hope that you are too. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review so we can keep telling your stories. For more great Oklahoma content, follow This Is Oklahoma on Facebook and Instagram.